Hello there, I'm Ronnie. Welcome to another episode of That's the Story, Term 4, Week 5. My goodness, where has this year gone? Let's get cracking. Let's get into it. Let's have a little mud investigation, shall we?
It was a mess. One of those guys off one of those special investigation units programs on telly could figure out this one in 2 seconds flat. There were fingerprints all over the show. It was like an explosion of finger painting, only feet were used too. Mrs. Kavanagh Smythe was in no mood for mess, and this was indeed a mess. Fingerprints all over the kitchen cupboards, on the fridge door. It was like someone had dipped their hand in cow poo, then stamped them all over her kitchen. And that was just the start of it. Her newly cleaned pure white floor was dotted with footprints, like the handprints, as if someone had dipped their feet in cow manure before walking in. The light switches caked in muck. Her carpet, "Oh no, not my carpet," Mrs. Kavanagh Smythe had wailed. There were footprints all over the show. And through into the lounge, there were muddy footprints leading all the way up to the TV's remote control, and a big mud splat on the remote control device. And the TV bellowed out afternoon cartoons. The footprints led back to her favourite recliner, her lazy boy in baby blue. Only now it was her lovely lazy boy in baby blue with a big brown muddy bum print on the seat. The tears began to roll down her cheeks as she traced the footprints, now leading out of the lounge. Oh my goodness, and into the hallway. It was a nightmare. It was as if someone had walked into the hallway, tripped over the skateboard that was actually still sitting there, rolled down the hallway and left a trail of mud, finger and footprints along the way as they rolled and crashed their way down the hall. The footsteps led to the toilet. What a mess. She hoped that was mud on the seat, cistern and toilet roll dispenser. Upon intense investigation, it was found to indeed be mud. The footsteps led to a now locked bathroom where the shower was currently running and some hideous creature was making a horrendous noise. The shower stopped, the door unlocked, and out came Peter, looking cleaner than a whistle. "Hi, Mum," he bellowed jollily as he walked by. The trail ended here, all evidence washed away. Mrs. Kavanagh Smythe headed for the broom closet to retrieve her mop and bucket.
Now, time for a little game. This is a game called Who Am I? Really simple. I give you some clues. From those clues, try and guess who it is that I'm talking about. Here come those clues.
What's his name? What's she called? I think I know who that is. Who could it be? Let's wait and see what the clues are to this quiz.
This female was born in Wellington in 1888. She was a prominent New Zealand modernist short story writer. Her first printed stories appeared in the High School Reporter and the Wellington Girls High School magazine. She wrote in her early journals of feeling alienated in New Zealand and of how she had become disillusioned because of the repression of the Maori people. Maori characters were often later portrayed in a sympathetic or positive light in her many stories. She left New Zealand at the age of 19 to settle in the UK. She is famous for revolutionising the 20th century English short story. She continues to be taught worldwide in schools, not only because of her historical importance, but also because her writing offers lessons in entering ordinary lives that are still vivid and strong. Her fiction retains its relevance through its open-endedness, its ability to raise discomforting questions about identity, belonging, and desire. She is famously quoted as saying, "Make it a rule of life never to regret and never to look back. Regret is an appalling waste of energy. You can't build on it, it's only good for wallowing in." Amongst many others, she wrote The Garden Party, Miss Brill, The Doll's House, and At the Bay. In 1917, she was diagnosed with extrapulmonary tuberculosis, which led to her death at the very young age of 34. She was born Kathleen Mansfield Beauchamp, but wrote under the name of...
What's his name? What's she called? I think I know who that is.
Okie diddly dokey, if you reckon you know who it is I'm talking about, head along to our website, that'sthestory.co.nz. Click on Contact Us. You can send your answer from there. Don't forget to ask your teacher or caregiver first. First correct entry will win a couple of books from my library. Now, let's meet a cool, crazy cat.
I'm a cool crazy cat, I'm the top of the heap. I'm a cool crazy cat, number one in the street. I'm as cool as a lolly and I'm just as sweet. I'm a cool crazy cat and my name is Pete. I always land on my paws. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm a cool crazy cat that everyone adores. I like to eat, I like to sleep, I like to sneak around. I like to hang out in the garden where I can't be found. I like to scream at other cats, I really like the sound. I like to sniff around in bins all over town. I like to sneak, I like the street. I'm a cool crazy cat and my name is Pete. See that tree over there, that's mine. You wanna have a climb, that's fine. I like to climb to the top. Let's go higher, man! Until I nearly drop. Let's go higher, man! I like to eat treats, I always land on my feet. I'm a cool crazy cat and my name is Pete. I like to eat treats, I always land on my feet. I'm a cool crazy cat and my name is Pete. Me? Ow!
Wow, that was a cool, crazy cat. Now, let's meet the Dancing Duke.
Duke loves dancing. He can't remember when it started, so he must always have loved to dance, ever since he was a tiny puppy. He particularly likes dancing with his humans. When the big human comes home at the end of the day, Duke gets up on his back legs and jumps around. He's so excited to see him. He dances and dances and dances, showing off his best moves until the human stops and plays with him. Duke loves the big human. They play chase and fetch and rough and tumble, but Duke likes the dancing part best. Sometimes the small humans, called children, hold his front paws while he's dancing, or they let him rest his front paws on their shoulders. That's when he can really show off his moves. He twirls around the deck with the small humans, a picture of grace and elegance. It even looks as though he's dressed especially for dancing, in baggy Cossack pants, because his hind legs are all furry. Duke is a husky. Duke can do pirouettes too. It may look as though he is just chasing his tail round and round in circles, but actually he is dancing pirouettes. His ears fold back against his head and his tongue lolls out of his mouth a little because he is concentrating so hard on his dancing. When Duke thinks that a human might want to play with him, he does a little dance especially for them. He stands up on his hind legs and jumps up and down, showing off all his fancy moves. He waves his front legs in time with the imaginary music in his head and sways gently to the rhythm. Duke's favourite television program is Dancing with the Stars. His favourite dance is the foxtrot, of course. When Duke sleeps, he dreams about appearing on Dancing with the Stars, and his legs twitch as he goes through his paces on the dance floor in his dreams. In his mind, he is drifting gracefully around the dance floor, his fur all brushed flat and smooth, and wearing a smart new collar, with perhaps a slightly sparkly tag hanging off it. He looks rather snazzy, even if he does say so himself. If there was a version of Dancing with the Stars for dogs, Duke would definitely be on the show. It would be called Dances with Wolves. Duke practices dancing every day, just in case they ever do make that show.
Now, since we're on the subject of animals, let's see what they do when we're not looking.
Of course, every sheep in the paddock knew that pawns can only move one space at a time and that the bishop could only move on a diagonal on their chosen square, black or white. But Barbara Lamb was always trying to cheat at chess. She wasn't a very good chess player for a sheep, but she was a darn good cheater.
You can't move your pawn 3 spaces!
Yelled Ernie Lamb.
Oh, sorry!
Bleated Barbara Lamb.
I thought you could!
And the game of chess continued. The horses were having a bit of a problem mastering the waltz. Oh, it's a right kerfuffle. whinnied Wilbur the Clydesdale. "Come on, you lot, how hard is it? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. That's right. We might get on to So You Think You Can Dance after all. Maybe even Dances with the Stars. Wouldn't that be marvellous?" The cows were deep in debate. If time were a reality, then explain the hours between 3 and 6 on a Sunday evening when time seems to stand still. Explain that, Mr. Smarty Pants Frisian Heifer. Conrad Cow had a point. Philosophy was a subject dear to the heart. They would argue over the merits of nature versus nurture. Are we born stupid, or are we made that way because of our environment? Horace Heifer was good at arguing, so if a human is in the house and they yell, "Get 'em behind!" and there isn't a cow there to hear them say, "Get 'em behind!" does he actually say, "Get 'em behind"? One could quite easily get lost in the cows' conversation, and the chickens had no idea what it was they were talking about.
"What a load of gibberish!"
Clarence clucked.
"Now would someone please pass me the soldering iron? Whoa, I think I've finally got the circuit right on this time machine."
The chickens were building a time machine in their chicken coop.
I think that if we connect the fusion capacitors to the stagulator and reconfigure the non-temporal flummox coil, we might just have a time machine.
Clarence clucked, and in a wash of sparks from her welding torch, she got stuck into connecting some very complicated circuitry to some other very complicated circuitry. Now, the new addition to the farm, at least they were normal. The ostriches were in the front field, having tea and scones, and discussing, in a very civilised way, the rather nasty spate of weather they'd been having. "Oh, I do believe there is some very nasty cumulus gathering on the horizon, being followed very closely by an anticyclone, but the El Niño coming in from the tropics will affect the day's forecast in ways one could never have expected." Monty Ostrich was quite the authority on weather and wasn't too bad at making tea and scones either. And just as the afternoon was running along quite nicely, thank you very much, for all the farm animals, a sparrow, their communications expert, the lookout, came fluttering overhead, puffing and panting and out of breath.
Humans! Humans! There's a car coming! Humans!
He was yelling to all the animals as he flew by. The sheep stopped playing chess and were heads down eating grass. The horses stopped their waltzing lessons and began to gallop very horse-like around the field. The cows stopped their discussion on modern-day philosophy and started ruminating and chewing their cud. The cows put down their tools and left the time machine alone and went about clucking and pecking at the ground, and the ostriches put down their tea and scones and started darting back and forth around the paddock like the silly beggars ostriches are. The car with 4 humans inside went driving by, 2 children in the back seat looking at all the animals as they drove by.
"Look, Mummy!"
one of the humans cried out.
"There's a cow!"
And the car drove off into the distance. And the sheep carried on with their chess game. The horses continued to waltz. The cows carried on their conversation on modern-day philosophy, and the chickens picked up their tools and carried on building their time machine, while the ostriches picked up their tea and scones and continued to mill over the possibilities of rain this afternoon. The next time you're out driving in the country, keep a close eye on those animals. You just never know what they're getting up to when you're not looking.
Now, if you would like me to do a little bit of a shout out to you and your mates, all you have to do is head along to our website, that'sthestory.co.nz. Click on Contact Us and send your message from there. Don't forget to ask your teacher or your caregiver first. Now, ever put on the wrong clothes?
3B were late for PE. Today was swimming. "Hurry up," yelled Mr. Button. "Just quickly go and get changed and get into that pool immediately." 3B frantically did as they were told. Mr. Button, despite his friendly sounding name, was not a nice person. In fact, if you made him mad, he could be really quite scary, as 3B had already discovered. Sam and Theo dashed into the changing rooms, pulling their clothes over their heads and kicking off their shoes and socks. They grabbed their togs out of their PE bags, shuffling all of their clothes into a big pile on the bench, before walking, not running, as quickly as they could out to the pool area. For 3/4 of an hour, 3B stroked and paddled, dived and splashed from one end of the pool to the other. 6 sets of races, 2 relays, and only 5 minutes of free time at the end. That's what you get for being late, said Mr. Button, still not 100% happy in his job. Sam and Theo shivered as they skulked slowly back into the changing rooms and pulled their towels out from their PE bags. They took off their wet togs, dried themselves, and then got dressed again, picking up their undies, shirts, shorts, socks and jerseys from the tangled pile of clothes in front of them. Sam bent down to pick up one of his shoes from the floor. There was a ripping sound from his behind as he bent over. Sam and Theo laughed. They stopped what they were doing and stood and stared at each other. Sam's shorts were way too small for him. They were tight and clingy, and now, unfortunately, they had a rip along the seam at the back. Theo's shirt had an ink stain on it, a stain that Theo had not made, but one that Sam had definitely put there earlier on during maths. Theo's jersey hung down off his shoulders, and the sleeve stretched way beyond his hands. Sam and Theo stared at each other and laughed. They laughed long, loud and hard, and then all the other kids in the changing room started to laugh at them too. In all the rush and confusion, Sam and Theo had put on the wrong clothes. Sam's jersey was tight, and you could see his puku poking out. Theo had one long sock and one short sock, and, funnily enough, so did Sam. The boys laughed and laughed until Mr. Button stormed in, shouting loudly, "What's all this kerfuffle, boys?" But even Mr. Button grinned just ever so slightly when he spotted silly Sam and Theo sporting the wrong clothes.
That's my lot for another week. Thanks ever so much for listening. I really do appreciate it. I'll catch you again next week. Until then, ka kite anō.
I wanna hear the one about the big old plum tree. I wanna hear the one about the giggly bum.